All right. What is up, everybody? That was something. That was really really something. Um, Everyone, while you're here, be sure to vote on the poll. Gotta make sure everything's set up. I've had this thing like ready to go for hours, and all the lighting has changed in here. I look purple and red. Like, where's it at? Like everything in here right now. It like everything in here has changed. Uh, Jeez. I have like a strobe light going on the background. Y'all don't see off screen. I have like a bunch of different ring lights, and there's this one that okay, that's better. It's about as not red as I'm gonna get, but that was crazy. Real quick, Napa Racing Fan 927 for the two. Thank you. Austin Dillon's life in the dry lane. Yeah, I mean either way, he got the win. We'll go through that in a moment. I gotta get all my stuff together because it's been all day. But I'm really interested to see what you all think about this race because some I know are not a fan of it because of everything that happened, went wrong, whatever. Um, some of y'all, because of all the craziness, are a fan of it. We'll get to the playoffs in a moment. Make sure I have that all down. Yes, I do. But let's go through. Oh, thank you, Scott McNew, for being a member for 11 months. This Truex fan is praying for the tech gods. I don't blame you. I don't blame you, but I don't think that NASCAR, at any costs they can possible, is going to let this win be taken away because they want it just to stay how it is, I think. But yeah, it's a tough deal with Truex. By the way, click that like button. Got over 200 watching right now as we start this off. Nova Stone 12, thank you for the 199. A top 5 driver replaced by a round of 16 exit. True. But at least Bass Pro Shops is in for a round, maybe two. You never know. But let's go into it right now. Let's go into the finishing order of all this. After I read this one last super chat from Oh Baby for 5. Did NASCAR mess up by not flagging it for rain? Lots of spotters said it was raining in turn 4 before they crashed in turn 1. Yes, I asked it first. I will get to that in a moment. We'll get to that when we go through the race. Groovy Goose, Michael McDowell, more like Michael Mid. He's not mid. He's the most underrated driver in NASCAR. But let's get into the finishing order of the 2022 Coke Zero Sugar 400. There, I read the corporate line. Austin Dillon won. His teammate, Tyler Reddick, finished second, 0.128 seconds behind. Then after that, you have Austin Cindric in third, Landon Castle fourth, and Noah Gragson in the 5th position. Noah Gragson made that race interesting at the end before they all kind of got together. In 6th, Cody Ware, really quick. I said that's in the chat earlier before, the red flag was even out. I put $20 just for the hell of it on DraftKings on Cody Ware, and if he would have won, I would have won 10 grand. So, too bad. It was a long shot anyway. That's why I put the money on him just for the hell of it. But would have been nice to have 10 grand in the bank. 7th was B.J. McLeod. 8th, Martin Truex Jr. In 9th, David Reagan. 10th, final guy on the lead lap. He lost the draft at the end. Would be Kyle Busch. Then the rest of these guys were some of the only ones who were still out there. They did not finish on the lead lap. These guys were Bubba Wallace, a lap down in 11th. Joey Logano, 12th, 2 laps down. Ty Gibbs, 13th, 2 laps down. Then Alex Bowman, 14th, -4. Ryan Blaney, -6 laps. And a 15th, Cole Custer, 7 laps down. He might have finished out, though. I'm not completely sure. Good point there from War Dog Man 2.0. Says David Reagan has finished in every spot. Yes, 9th was the only spot in his career he had not finished. Kyle 3000, thank you for the 10. 16 different winning cars, so the 12 car won't be in the owners' playoffs. That is amazing in not a great way. Getting through the rest of the field here, though. Eric Jones finished 17th, first car out of the race. All these cars, except for one, have a DNF, and I'll mention that one in a minute. Ty Dillon, 18th. 19th, Harrison Burton. 20th, Kevin Harvick, who was second during the red flag, but his car was totaled. Eric Almirola, 21st. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 22nd. 23rd, Todd Gilliland. 24th, Daniel Suarez. 25th, Denny Hamlin. Daniel Hemrick in 26th. Christopher Buescher in 27th. Justin Haley, 28th. Chase Elliott, 29th. And then you go to the last car who actually finished on track today. Corey LaJoie, 30th, minus 23 laps. Then you have Chase Briscoe, 31st. Michael McDowell, 32nd. 33rd, Ross Chastain. 34th, William Byron. 35th, Brad Keselowski. Christopher Bell finishing 36th, and Kyle Larson finishing caboose on the field in last. Nova Stone 12, thank you for the 2. In my opinion, the race was ruined by the playoffs and the rain crash. So I'm going to just ask you guys straight up, yes or no question here. Was this race ruined by the rain controversy? So I'll ask you guys that. Let's start going through some of the stuff that happened in the race. We'll go stage 1 and 2 really quick, go through those. Starting on CNBC, so I'm guaranteeing right now that the streak of races that saw increases in ratings will end at 7. We will not reach the record of 8 this year. I'm pretty sure that NASCAR would have had the race run on its scheduled time on the scheduled channel, but it is what it is. But it started earlier today, around 10 Eastern. By the way, thank you for 2, Cody. Dylan didn't move Cindric. That was Dale. He's moved people at Daytona before for a win, so no difference here for Cindric compared to what happened to Eric Almirola. Looking through what happened in stage 1, you really had 2 major incidents here. Kyle Larson had engine issues. That's why he finished last in this race. And then the first caution was a crash that involved Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, Brad Keselowski, Ty Gibbs, and Truex had some flat-spotted tires, but that's about it. Nothing too out of the ordinary for a Daytona incident. It just looked like an accordion effect. It really wasn't anyone's fault per se. But the stage ended. Joey Logano got an extra playoff point, winning the stage. Then Chase Elliott, Burton, Kyle Busch. Truex got 6 playoff points there. And that's really where the main battle came into effect. Ryan Blaney being taken out early and Truex being able to survive the first 2 stages, I think is really where we saw the most action for the points. So after that, stage 2 was just nuts. 3 wide racing the entire time. And it was really fun to watch, honestly. It was really fun watching all these guys dicing it up in the pack, really running a fairly good race for the most part. It was similar to the Xfinity race where, yes, you had that first incident, but it was for the most part clean, good racing. And that's what we want to see. But then the only real incident you had before green flag pit stops was Chris Buescher being shoved out of the pack, and it really just got him some bad positioning. I will say NBC did that that happened during the commercials. I think they need to work on that because some of the commercials, and this is the way for all super speedway races, it gets a little overboard. By the way, I'm gonna end this poll right here. 67% say that they thought it was ruined by the controversy that we'll talk about in a moment. But looking at what happened with green flag stops, it started on lap 78, and then there was 2 laps before the end of them. The Toyotas all pitted together on lap 78. All of them came together pretty organized. Nothing really too bad happened. I think they had to back up because Bubba fell off the draft, but that was about it. But then lap 80, like 30 cars, I think, pitted. And I think there was a little rub between, it might have been Austin Dillon, it might have been someone else. I can't remember who it was. I got a DM from somebody at the race telling me that 2 cars barely got together. But for the most part, they all got on and off pit road with no incident. It was actually astounding for me to see, honestly, because I can't for the life of me remember when there were that many cars going onto pit road together, uh, and they didn't all wreck. Flat spotted tires were about the worst thing that happened, and that really didn't happen too much on that round. Anyway, the second stage ends. Truex gets another 9 stage points, which means that the gap was down from 25 when it started to 10 by the end of stage 2. And with so many cars out there, it looked like uh, it was really going to be a battle for Blaney to even be in the conversation, just because he was 6 laps down. A lot of these cars were out there. A lot of the drivers were playing nice. And ultimately, the end of the race happened. So we go down to the final stage, and it was crash central. It was crash galore with it. With 59 to go, you had Michael McDowell, Tyler Reddick, Truex, Chastain, Byron, Buscher. They all wrecked. Rain was on the way. The aggression was getting heightened up as the race was going. And ultimately, about 25 laps later on the front stretch, coming to 34 to go, Chase Briscoe was going like a bat out of hell to the front. And just the aggression, ultimately, he wasn't able to handle the aggression just because of the way the air was moving around the car. He started slowing up, backed into Bowman from what it looked like. There wasn't really a good angle on that crash, to be completely honest, but I think that he backed up into Bowman. People were blaming Alex Bowman for it, and while he gets involved in a lot of super speedway crashes, I don't think that one was his fault. But ultimately, it took out some more cars. I talked about those two. Bubba Wallace was in that one. That damaged his car. Harrison Burton, Cole Custer was running up there. He got taken out. Stenhouse, Gilliland, Harvick got a little bit in it. And even Austin Dillon got some damage in it. Just a little bit of a rub. He ended up spinning backwards on pit road, if y'all remember. So Austin Dillon, 34 laps later, from spinning backwards on pit road to winning. Interesting to see. And at that point, there was a bit of strategy starting to play. Justin Haley, as well as Eric Jones and a couple others, stayed out. Some took 0 tires, while others took 2, thinking that we would race to the end. And there was a big shuffling of the field. And that's where we see the biggest piece of the action. So with 30 to go back racing. And on the backstretch, Eric Jones, Joey Logano get together. That shuffles them all back up again. With 26 to go, there's a restart. Rain is imminent. You can see it out of turns 3 and 4. You can see it in 1 and 2. You look at the radar, it's covering the state of Florida. Like, at that point, I'm pretty sure everybody knew the next flag was going to end the race, or at least that's the way that people were looking at it. And I wouldn't blame people for it, because the radar did not look good whatsoever. 23 to go. Coming around, they're racing side by side. What's up, Ryan, by the way? Ryan Vargas in the chat, everybody. He had I believe, Ryan, you finished 6th in the Xfinity race, if I'm not mistaken. I want to be completely sure. It was late. It was a late night and an early morning. But great run for Ryan last night. Want to shout that out while I'm have that on my mind, as well as for Clements and a bunch of others. But good stuff there to see. But you see them all go out of turn 4. Everyone's 3, 4 wide. Tons of really, just good racing for the most part for super speedway standards. And they go into the corner, and it's raining. This is where we get to the biggest controversy of the race, I think, outside of the playoff picture, which we'll talk about in a bit. And it's hard to know what to think about it, because when you look at the onboards from like Justin Haley, Austin Dillon, I think they showed Denny Hamlin at one point, a lot of the drivers were saying that it was raining. And it wasn't a clear and concise, uniform answer from the drivers. Some said it wasn't raining, others said it was. The onboards showed it wasn't. On Twitter, though, what I noticed, and I quote tweeted this, is that some of the fans in the stands were recording. And you could see as they're exiting turn 2, right before they come around and everyone just explodes into a giant wreck, there's rain coming down. And it's recorded from a phone. And I can tell you from recording a lot on my phone at the racetrack is that when you can see the raindrops on the video you're recording from a phone, it's pretty darn heavy rain, or at least big drops. Maybe not heavy rain, but big drops. And so you could see that as they're going down the backstretch into 3 and 4. NASCAR's official statement they had on the broadcast was that they didn't know really anything. They didn't see too much until they got out of 4 into the tri-oval. That they only had about 5 to 10 seconds to react. Now, again, even on the backstretch, that's still about 30 seconds, give or take, depending on where they were when they first would see it. But it does make me question a little bit. You know, NASCAR has been on both ends of taking care of their drivers during rain. You look at New Hampshire last year, not very good. As Ross Crash Stain brings up for 2, does Daytona have tinted windows too? Maybe, maybe not. But at the same time, last week at Watkins Glen, they played it safe, and ultimately that was the right move to do. I'm surprised after all that happened that we're having this kind of controversy in that you had, like I said, you had pretty much everyone taken out. I think we had like damn near 30 cars still out there when that wreck happened, and it took out pretty much all of them. But Fire 924, Dylan is the Make-A-Wish kid in the playoffs. That's not the way I thought I'd put it, but damn. And then GN NASCAR fan 24 for 5. NASCAR should bring expedited pre-race ceremony for weather delayed threatening weather. First time since the 2004 Daytona 500, I think. Bit of a throwback. Yes, yeah. Some of this, I mean, I thought the way that they handled the broadcast and the pre-race was good. But as for this, I'm going to say right now, I want to see if there's more camera angles. I want to see what NASCAR, like if NASCAR could release anything. Oh, thanks, Ryan. Thanks for coming in, man. And good job last night. But I want to see if they can have more footage, more kind of explanation for the fans and why that is. Because a lot of these different things don't add up. And that's where I think I and everybody else has the main question here. Like, where are we not adding up? Where is the disconnect between what we can clearly see from videos at the track, what we can clearly see from video on the front stretch on the broadcast, but then at the same time, you know, you look at some of the other ones and there wasn't rain. So I know it wasn't clear and definitive, but I want to see like where NASCAR was thinking with it, or like if it was, you know, what was the disconnect? That's the big question. But anyway, we have one good thing from it is we had Brett Griffin on the radio letting out an F-bomb. So that's always fun to hear on TV. But before we get to the red flag, I want to read a few of these super chats here that have just come in. From Oh Baby for 5. I feel cheated. Chastain didn't wreck a car this week, taking half the field out. Well, you know, it is kind of funny that Chastain, I think, is, you know, the rating streak didn't go to 8 races, but Chastain's streak of being in an instant, whether his fault or not, made it to 8. Ansar Das, thank you for the 5. No matter how big of an error NASCAR makes, there will be no accountability whatsoever. We can yell and scream all we want. They won't do anything. I personally think the controversy is exactly why NASCAR kept pushing. I don't think it was the playoffs itself. We ultimately saw the same outcome. And yeah, with the winner, I should say, not with the cut line itself. That, and we'll get to that in a moment. We will get to the playoffs in a moment. But I think ultimately the blowback that they were getting is why we saw these last 21 laps run. I don't think that they would have pushed as hard, even though there was a window. And I will say this: NASCAR needs credit for this. They will not stop pushing to have a race be run. I saw this at Nashville this past year. We thought that it was getting rained out to the next day, or you know, if they made it to halfway, it would be done, and it wasn't. So attaboy to NASCAR for pushing it, but I think that's a big reason why. The rain delay lasted for 3 hours and 19 minutes, and it was funny. Ed Soundhead on Twitter pointed out that's exactly the runtime of The Godfather Part 2. I would love to use The Godfather as units of measurement of time. That would be pretty fun. But we get to the final restart. It started getting really strung out to start with. Noah Gragson, I think, made those last 15 laps entertaining, more entertaining than any other driver did. When you look at how much he pushed, when he pushed up in the second pack, when he made that gap up to the first pack and started dicing it around with the 3 leaders up there, which at that point were Austin Cindric, Austin Dillon, Noah, and then of course Tyler Reddick, and then Noah Gragson jumping up there with them. I believe Reddick was drafting with Gragson. He made it interesting. They started dicing it up. That second pack finally caught back up there. And in this time between the restart and 5 to go is where we saw one of the biggest kind of shifts. A lot of these guys couldn't keep their cars on track because of damage from the crash with Ty Dillon, with Eric Jones. We saw a flat tire with Cole Custer, probably caused by that damage that he had accrued in the crash. And Blaney made up his points on Truex. That's really where it was made up. So with 5 to go, the 19 and the 12 are tied. And this is the major moment that we're going to be looking at, I think, after the season. We're going to be looking at this through the playoffs. If Truex makes a mad run, which he very well could. This year, I mean, even though Elliott's the favorite, he is not clearly and concisely somebody who you can say won't get caught up in crazy incidents. That's just the way 2022 is gone. But Truex fades back through the pack, back to, what is it, 8th? Yeah, I mean, he finished behind guys like Cody Ware, BJ McLeod, Landon Castle, and it wasn't because he made a bad move. It was because he had damage on his car from all the incidents. With 3 to go, Cindric's leading over Austin Dillon, and this is where everything gets shuffled. Dillon gets into the back of Cindric, nearly takes him out. It slows up those front 3 guys that are up there, front 4, whatever. And the back pack, the ones with Castle, David Reagan, Cody Ware, all these guys, they all get to catch up with this. They catch up. Everyone dices it up. With 2 to go, it's the 2 RCR guys, Castle, 4th is Gragson, then you got the Rick Ware teammates, and Austin Cindric. And then you see the finish. And at this point, as we will now talk about with the playoffs, Martin Truex Jr. gets eliminated from the playoffs. Austin Dillon makes it in at the 11th hour. We have 16 winners, which means the 12 and the 19 will not be eligible for the Owners' Championship as well, as the 3 is in there and the 45 is in there. So let's get these super chats really quick. I've missed a couple, and we're going to get right into the playoffs here. Because I can read you off who's in the playoffs. We can talk about who deserves to be in, who doesn't, whatever. But it's very interesting to see the reaction. But real quick, Daniel Shell for 2, Truex not making the playoffs, does, and then a bunch of LOLs. Oh Baby for 5, have you talked about how Almirola is not retiring and even signed a new contract? Does that eliminate what top teams Busch can race for next year? We'll talk about the NASCAR Weekly Podcast this Wednesday on Black Flags Matters channels. We got a lot to talk about on there, and a lot of if we don't talk about it today, we will talk about it on Wednesday night as well. But let's get to this. By the way, click that like button as we have 800 watching. Thank you very much for all the support. Vote on the poll on the community tab as well. Let's just keep this community we keep growing going. It's really fun to see what you guys think. And then last super chat here, Napa Racing Fan 927 for 10. I hate the way NASCAR promotes next week's race. It's all about the playoffs. They don't even mention it's a crown jewel race. I care more about the Southern 500 than I do the playoffs. Should be on NBC. I agree on all counts. Let's get to the playoffs here. I'll read you off the grid, and then we'll go into the controversy on this. We'll get right into the controversy on this. So Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Ross Chastain, Kyle Larson, William Byron, Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, Kevin Harvick, Chase Briscoe, Christopher Bell, Kyle Busch, Daniel Suarez, Alex Bowman, Austin Cindric, Austin Dillon, and Ryan Blaney. Those are your 16 going for the playoffs. We'll get to it. We'll have a video probably up tomorrow covering those guys' chances in the coming weeks. But John Vandevetter for 2, not much NASCAR could have done differently. I agree for the most part. There isn't really too much. But here we go. We have been seeing this scenario play out for most of the year. At first, it was that Blaney and Truex were in and that Harvick would be out. And Harvick has been a little bit off for the most part this year in comparison to the ways of his past self, 2020 on back, of winning tons of races. He gets his wins, he's in. But there wasn't as much of a debate about Kevin Harvick. But there was about the possibility that two guys who have been in the top 5 in points for most of the summer, Martin Truex Jr. and Ryan Blaney, would be out of the playoffs if someone else won. When someone else wins, of course, Blaney and Truex are the guys on the cut line. Now, you can say that they don't deserve to be in the playoffs because they didn't win. Personally, I think that's a bad argument because we've seen before drivers who don't win during the first 26 races go out and compete for a championship. In this system, in past systems, we saw it with Tony Stewart in 2011. Tony Stewart didn't win a race, thought he didn't even deserve to be in the chase, went off and rattled off 5 wins in the last 10 races. He would have won under just about any system that wasn't the Winston Cup format. You look at Ryan Newman, for instance. Ryan Newman, the first year of winning you're in, is literally second place in points after having no wins all season, running between 7th to 15th all year. You see it there. He deserved to be in there. He played the system well. And again, you play the system well on this as well if you're guys like Austin Dillon, Tyler Reddick, Austin Cindric, Alex Bowman, all these guys who did not run as well as Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex Jr. did this year. I'm not going to lie and tell you guys that, oh, just deal with it. I don't like it either. I think it's pretty embarrassing that drivers who could easily challenge the top guys, who could challenge these top seeds like Elliott, Logano, Chastain, Larson, Hamlin with how he's been doing. I don't like that some of these guys can't make it because they didn't get a win, while somebody who ran 20th or 16th all year can. The winning you're in, I think, this format in general gets exposed in a lot of ways. Whether you see a guy who hasn't won a race win a championship in the Truck Series, or you see guys like this who get eliminated who should be in, I feel like NASCAR dodged a bullet with Kurt Busch not being able to come back, as morbid as that probably sounds, because both of these guys wouldn't have made it, just like they didn't in the owner's standings. So it could be a lot worse. But it's something that NASCAR needs to evaluate. How much are you willing to sell your soul to the entertainment devil to get that kind of entertainment and give away consistency, to give away in a lot of ways legitimacy? There's no way you can tell me that these guys at the bottom of the grid were better than Blaney and Truex this year. There's no way you can tell me that Austin Dillon, Austin Cindric, Alex Bowman, Daniel Suarez, Kyle Busch, Chase Briscoe, William Byron, you can't tell me they deserve to be in there more than those two do. Now, I'm not saying that we need to go necessarily to completely, chase format the way it was from 2004 to 2013, where it's majority on points or, a good amount, but there needs to be, I think there needs to be more than just the guy in first. I think that it's good they had the fail-safe that the guy in first would make the playoffs no matter what. If Chase Elliott didn't get a win this year with how consistent he's been, Chase Elliott still deserves to be in the playoffs no matter what. If Ryan Blaney or Martin Truex Jr. eclipsed Chase Elliott during the regular season, they deserve to be in there no matter what. But I think there needs to be a little bit more of a push that you don't have to go out there and junk your car and put yourselves in bad positions when you're running second or third or fourth in points. I don't think that that's something that NASCAR should be promoting. I don't think NASCAR should be promoting the fact that guys who outrun a majority of the field all year can't make it. And you can make your stick and ball references, but this is not stick and ball. This is not baseball. This isn't NFL. This isn't, the NBA or NHL. It's completely different. You can have the chase format. You can have the playoff format. I can't lie. In the motorsports community, whether you like this or not, the playoffs, super speedway racing, stage racing, all of this stuff sets NASCAR apart. I don't think you can argue that. And I think in a lot of ways you can argue that it's a really good thing. I just think that fine-tuning certain aspects of this stuff could make the product better for fans as well as more fair to the competition. But that's my big take on it. We'll go over some more stuff about this race in a bit, but I want to get to some of these super chats as well that people have left. JC1424 calling Dylan a silver spoon, saying silver spoons are dumping each other. Literally the definition of NASCAR. I'm sorry, I wouldn't. I'm not gonna go as far as say they're all silver spoons, but it was. Again, I think that was more of a racing deal, that those two guys are just amped up and not thinking with their heads at the moment, just thinking with, instinct, going where the car will take them. But I won't criticize Dylan too much for that. He was doing what he needed to win the race. That's what the system promotes. Don't blame the drivers, blame the game. Carl Singleton, thank you for the 2. If Chase doesn't win the Cup, F NASCAR. I don't. That's what gets set up. I mean, Chase Elliott right now is in the same position Kevin Harvick was in 2020, and a lot of Elliott fans were fine then, and they won't be fine now, and I don't blame them, because Elliott has been the best all year. If Elliott, I don't think that anyone other than Chase Elliott deserves to win the championship this year. Chase Elliott has been head and shoulders above everybody. I'm sorry. He has. Chase Elliott has been head and shoulders above everybody since about halfway through the season, and he is the most deserving driver out there. There you go for all you people who think that I hate Chase Elliott. I don't. Actually, I think what he said on Twitter about Bristol was hilarious last night. If you didn't see it, he said, it's not raining in Bristol today. But I don't think the way that, at least going into the weekend, with Daytona scheduled on this weekend, NASCAR can't really help that there were these rain issues. They can't control Mother Nature. They can't control when it rains. They can't control that kind of stuff. What they can control, I think, is the way they schedule it. I've always had fun little conspiracy theories put out there, and one thing I had said a while back, I believe in 2019, I said it when they announced that Daytona would be moved to the end of the regular season. When you look at the way that the year goes for Florida when it comes to tropical storms and hurricanes and really bad weather, it peaks at the end of August into September. The weekend that Daytona is pretty much the peak of hurricane and tropical storm season in Florida. You're going to get rain. And my conspiracy theory I put out there, again, it is unfounded. There's no way that you can really prove it right unless you get somebody caught in the act of saying it. That one of these years we're going to get Daytona rained out. It's just going to rain out for a week like Texas did, except we're not going to be able to get the race in. And Daytona, NASCAR will be able to use that as a way to test Daytona as the season finale. It's the ultimate push for entertainment. I think that one day Daytona will be the finale at some point. Maybe Talladega gets moved to the cutoff, or Atlanta, or Texas, the way that they might change that into a super speedway. We don't know yet. But that's an idea I had. I'm not saying that I think that's how it's going to go. I know it rains all the time in Florida, but it rains the most in August. Their base is in Daytona. They know this. Maybe it's the networks pushing it too. Maybe if ESPN gets in there like it's been rumored for the end of the year, and maybe they want to push for more of what works with F1 with their broadcasts. Granted, they don't have their own teams with that, but maybe all this stuff won't happen. But it's interesting to ask some of these questions. Why do this when you have such a risk? Because let's be real, NASCAR gets this race in. We probably have more than 4 million people watching. We have tons of people watching. No matter the controversy that comes from this race, the national attention on a Saturday night will, for the most part, be on NASCAR when it comes to the sports market. So it's a nuanced issue, but it doesn't necessarily negate the opinions that fans have for or against it. But there's nuance to it. We'll talk about Wednesday night and stuff like that, but is what it is. Fire 924, thank you for the 2. Stick and ball playoffs would have Martin Truex Jr. in the 5th seed. Well, I mean, NFL has it where they have the division winners and then wild cards. Even I think that's still dumb, and that's been the way it's been for a long time. I think it should just be the best teams. The best of the best should go for the championship. That's what the championship is for, to figure out who is the best. But we've been having these discussions, arguments, debates about the playoffs Arguably, you could say since 2004 if you want to count the chase with it, but for sure since 2014 with the win and you're in style. Like, that's just how it's been in NASCAR. I don't think any amount of complaining that fans do is going to change it, but it doesn't change the fact that you need to put it out there and say what you think. Maybe eventually it will. Michael Curtis, thank you for the 2. Cindric raced really well in the second half of the season. He did, but as an overall season, he still was around that 11th to 16th range. By no means do I think he's the worst guy in the playoffs. I actually don't think, if everything goes right for him, it's pretty likely he makes it to the round of 12. And with a road course with the Roval and Talladega in there, I mean, I don't think he's going to be a favorite, but he is definitely a dark horse for the round of 8. I don't think he competes for a championship this year. He's not ready yet, but yeah. Gianna NASCAR Fan 24 brings up a really good point in the chat, and I remember Jeff Hammond talking about this. Fox was critical of the chase in 2004. It's also, as much as we love NBC, it's awfully convenient that all these major changes happen to the playoff or championship format either during or right before NBC's terms with NASCAR. Just interesting to say or to look at. But that's really what it is for the most part. Now, I want to ask you guys this question after something like this, because I've asked this before and people say yes to it, but that's without the hyper emotional, I guess you could say, state that fans are in after a race like this. Do you think Daytona should stay as a cutoff race? I'll put it up right now. I'll just put it as yes or no. I mean, or yes, no, or maybe. How about not maybe? Let's put yes, no. Okay. I'll ask you guys that question. By the way, vote on the poll on my channel. It's on the community tab. We'll read it off this Wednesday night on Black Flags Matters podcast. Let's see. How'd you get from Victory Lane to home? Oh, jeez. Everyone thinks I look like Austin Dillon. I think I'm better looking personally. Just saying. Antar Das, thank you for the 5. I'm honestly getting motivated to become a billionaire and buy NASCAR straight up, so we make it legitimate again and scrap the playoffs. I think we all want to be a billionaire. Like I said, if Cody Ware somehow would have squeaked out and won the race today, I would have been $10,000 richer. If Eric Jones would have won today, I would have had $4,000 more. So I'll just keep betting on the races and start winning them more, and we'll we'll start a game plan. We'll start a little fund. How about that? I mean, overall though, if you take away the controversial parts of all this, I did think it was a pretty entertaining race. I think the package for the most part can be improved. I think maybe the runs could be made a little faster, but for the most part, there's nothing really racing wise I would complain about. I would say that, like I said, the package is a solid 8 out of 10 right now. There's stuff to improve, but that's sort of nitpicking. You can have little adjustments to it. By the time they get to Talladega or even the Daytona 500 next year, I think we could see even better super speedways. I like it's interesting looking at the split on this poll here. We have almost 300 votes in the first minute, so attaboy to you guys for showing out today. But asking if Daytona should stay as a cutoff race, it's 52 yes to 48 no. I'm seeing a lot of people. I mean, if we're gonna keep with the entertainment, if we're gonna keep to the the playoff style formats, the stuff that we've had the last pretty much decade, it does make sense to keep Daytona as this race from a racing aspect. I personally would be better off if we had Atlanta, just because if we're gonna make this new super speedway, we might as well make it have a special date, not just take up a random day on the schedule. Atlanta is not to the level yet that Talladega and Daytona are on, so I think it needs a bit propped up. Or Bristol. I mean, this weekend is what traditionally was before 2020 the Bristol night race weekend. I went there in 2019 for the Bristol Night Race, and the weather was great. There was, the energy was great. It was all around a great event, and I think that yes, in the playoffs it does have a good spot, but I think it could have a good spot too, like this at this point of the season still. Um, but again, that's just my opinion. I don't think I'm gonna. I don't think I have enough say to change anything. But if I had to choose, I would have one of those two. Um, Personally, nostalgia is a hell of a drug. You could say that, Daniel, but it there's a reason that 10 million people a week were watching back then. It's because I feel like we focus too much on the championship. Like one of the earlier comments said that like when the Southern 500 comes up, I like it more for the Southern 500 rather than the playoffs personally. Uh, that's just my thoughts. Carl Singleton, thank you for the 5. NASCAR keeps exposing why I quit watching last year. I mean, you say you quit watching, but you're on the stream right now. I I'm not gonna quit. My thing is, I'm not gonna quit watching, but I think that there can be improvements, even if this kind of style of racing stays. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's looking like Yes is pulling away right now. Yes is pulling away by a lean. It is Yes lean when it comes to do you think Daytona should stay as a cutoff race 54% to 46%. So thank you guys, by the way. Hit that like button. I know we're around 700 right now. We peaked out at like 815. So it's interesting. But you complain the most? Nah. I mean, if you see it as complaining, I see it as criticism. I'm giving options to change it. If I was just bitching into the void, then, you know, then I'd be complaining. But I'm not doing that. Thank you, Cavante Caldwell. I want your first 4 out and your final 4. Okay. Because this could change by Wednesday, because I think we'll probably give some picks by Wednesday. First 4 out. This is really interesting to look at. I would say first 4 out would be William Byron, Chase Briscoe, Alex Bowman, and Austin Dillon. As for the final 4, Chase Elliott for sure I'd put in. Kyle Larson probably. Christopher Bell has been way better than people think. And man, it's actually tougher than I thought. Again, it's gonna change. I think my picks by Wednesday are gonna change. But well, let's just say Joey Logano. I'm torn between Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin with that. Jerry Hamilton, thank you for the 5. I think NASCAR should have the playoffs because this race wouldn't have mattered because of Chase Elliott's enormous points lead. I can understand that argument. But at the same time, Chase Elliott's been better than everybody this year. Chase Elliott deserves an enormous points lead. Like, he's been that good. So, that's my take. Again, we can agree to disagree. It's what it is. Cody Workman for 2. If NASCAR wants to be WWE, just let them. I don't think it's WWE. I don't think it's set up. It's a direction a lot of sports are going in general. Look at baseball; they're looking at shortening games, changing up the game itself to fit to a modern audience, and NASCAR is doing the same. I don't agree with it, but it is what it is. Again, I will criticize. I'm fine criticizing as long as I'm not, and I'm just fine not bitching. Jarrett HMS hater. Yeah, as I talk for Chase Elliott. I just like trolling too, man. Like sometimes I just you just have to sit back and troll people, but do not compare racing to baseball. I'm not saying I'm comparing it in the sense of like on the field or on the track action, but just more to the direction that their sports are going in. It's comparable. I is what it is though. I can tell throughout the rest of this week and probably into the playoffs, like this discussion is probably not going to go away, especially if somebody high up in the standings that's a fan favorite. uh, gets taken out, I think this is just going to keep popping up all the time. This conversation. I'm not gonna let you guys know, by the way, that watch the podcast, what the standings are. I gotta look at all that though. I think though that it's fun to have the discussion too. I like hearing what people say, and again, if people hate it that much, which a lot of people have left, there's other motorsports to go to: Formula One, IndyCar, local short tracks. You, if people are around but complaining about it but sticking around, it's obviously not a deal breaker, and NASCAR sees that. Uh, Napa Racing Fan 927, thank you for the 2. Cindric nearly swept. Johnson last did it in 2013. Correct. Let's get last couple comments here and head out from here. First out, Briscoe, Byron, Bowman, Dillon. I don't know if that's your predictions or just repeating mine, but I agree if that is your prediction. Let's see. And Bobby Allison was the last to do it before Jimmy Johnson. Wow, that is a wild stat. Wow. Let's see. Napa Racing Fan 927. First 4 out. Briscoe, Bowman, Byron, Kyle Busch. I can see the argument for that. He's been off this year. Hasn't been the greatest year. But he did get a top 10 today. He finished on the lead lap. Oh, man. I could see it happening with the slump, but at the same time, this season has been so streaky that anybody could really, outside of maybe a couple in the playoffs, could go on a good streak and win the championship this year. All it takes is like doing well in the first 2 rounds, getting a win in the second, and being there at the end at Phoenix. Like, that's really what it could take. Skid, thanks for the 5. Am I the only one that thinks naming a regular season championship in NASCAR is like saying, here's your gift in case anything goes wrong? I think to a degree, I think it's NASCAR doing what a lot of other sports do and giving a bit of an advantage to those who have been better during the regular season. Eric and I had an interesting conversation about this on the podcast this past week, about how the regular season championship should be pushed up more. If you're going to continue with the system, like I think NASCAR will, push up the important aspects of it. For instance, winning stages, yeah, that's good during the races themselves, but you don't really talk too much, and you don't hear too much talk on the broadcast, on talk shows, stuff like that about NASCAR. You don't hear too much about the implications it has with the playoffs, who's been accruing so many more playoff points because of that. You don't hear about the regular season champion getting 15 bonus points, the equivalent of 3 wins going into the playoffs. You don't hear about that stuff. And I think that if NASCAR wants to promote this system, they have to get their partners to go all in on every aspect of it. Be very analytical with it. The way that NBC has been with on-track production, be like that with the playoffs in the regular season. Make it so that the fans get engaged. Because this is, and again, I will say this as someone who wants to go back to a full season points format, this is the most that the regular season has probably mattered for the majority of the field since the Winston Cup points format. Because back then, every position in the points mattered. And in this, now, when you have these, NASCAR, to their credit, has made it to where every race matters, every stage can matter for the championship. One stage point could be, that one playoff point won from a stage win could be the difference between being bouncing around a 16 and being in the final 4. I get that a lot of fans aren't for it, but my theory in a lot of ways is, and again, you can't prove it because of the fact that it is a silent amount, but I think there's a silent majority that like the playoffs, and then that's why it's working. You've seen NASCAR stabilize really since 2018, and the ratings have been up this year. They were up in 2019. It's you very much could argue that fans like it a lot more than the loud majority online would make you think. Again, like I said, there's a lot of nuance to all this. I'm giving you my opinion, but there's a lot of reasoning that people give that I just for different things in the sport I disagree with. That make good points and make good points. I mean, I know a lot of people who have started watching NASCAR never have known a NASCAR without winning or in, that love it, that love stage racing, that love all this stuff that I, as somebody who's watched for a long time, doesn't like. Um, it's really interesting to see the difference. Uh, Thank you, Amigo, I think, for the 10. I told Eric on his stream that a fix to the point system in the regular season is top 12 in points are guaranteed a playoff spot, 13th on back, fight for 4 wildcard spots like in 2011, 2013, through 2013 system. I mean, we saw that in action with the top 10 and then 2, and it really didn't make anything as crazy. Now, of course, the cat's out of the bag about winning and you're in and different things you can do to make it that way, but I could see that working. I could, but I don't think it's you got to think how NASCAR's trying to reach newer fans. They're trying to reach younger fans. They're trying to reach fans that are in areas like Chicago, Los Angeles, New York, all these major metropolitan areas that most major sports leagues manage to get. And the way you're going to get it is, as much as many of us see it as being, illegitimate or as being, uh, not straightforward. If you just explain it on its base premise, win a race and you're in the playoffs, win a race in the playoffs, you make it to the next round, and then if you do better in those rounds, after the advantages you built up in the regular season, it's probably the most simple way you could put a championship to someone, other than saying whoever has the most points at the end of the year wins. And you get the entertainment factor. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you and say that a Final Four is less entertaining every year than somebody who pulls away by 200 to 500 points. Um, I might not agree it's as legitimate, but I can agree that it's more entertaining. It obviously is. You wouldn't get a lot of the situations we've had in the last 10 years without it. Now, like Kate Stout says, F1 is appealing to young people with a legit system. I think that the reason F1 is appealing to younger people isn't because it's appealing to them for racing per se, as for the glitz and glamour, and just it's the trendy thing. Um, the way that you get people to stick around is with a good product. NASCAR has a good product now. It has the best product it's probably consistently had in a season since the end of the COT era. So, yeah, I it again. There's going to be a lot of nuance to it, and I think we'll talk about it a lot this Wednesday night on Black Flag Matters channel. For the NASCAR Weekly podcast. But I really like having this conversation back and forth with you guys, because there's a lot of different areas that you can look at it from, and ways you can look at it from that make it more complicated than just, oh, it's a little illegitimate, get rid of it. I've learned to live with it even though I don't like it. Obviously, a lot of you guys at home have, so it's what it is. Like, and we there's again, we can open up a lot of these through the week in videos and the podcast streams, whatever. Um, my thoughts. I've said it a lot. As for the race itself, though, I mean, take out the controversy of rain. Like I said, the racing was good. The product was good. I liked the race. I would have gave it a solid 8 out of 10 personally. I just don't like the crashes. What do I dislike about stage racing? I'm in the minority on this one. I think I don't like awarding points for where you're at throughout the race. I think it's where you finish is what matters, and I don't like stopping the race. Uh, I don't know if that question was to me or someone in the chat. I know a lot of people are going back and forth with conversations, um, but nah. Do you think we're getting an 8th straight ratings win or no? No, no. CNBC will never get the ratings that NBC will. Uh, I see a lot of people like the race, personally. I'll look at the way that the poll on the community tab is doing right now and see. Uh, there was a large amount of people that didn't like it, but there still is a large amount of people that liked it. So, I mean, again, the racing itself wasn't bad. Like the racing itself today was not bad, and if you, I'll say this, because I want everybody to enjoy NASCAR, even if they dislike parts of it. So, if you don't like the playoffs, yes, they're going to bring it up every week, but watch for the racing. It's what I do. I watch for the racing. I love NASCAR racing. It is, I think it's the best sport and sporting league in the world, personally. I will watch NASCAR over any other sport, any other racing series. But I watch for the racing. And there's been great racing this year. There's been really good racing this year. Uh, so enjoy that. Take away that if you have to. Um, we're going to Darlington. We're gonna have Bristol coming up. It's gonna be interesting to see if they've fixed up the package for short tracks. We're gonna have the Roval. That's always entertaining. There's a lot of good races that will be coming up. So enjoy the racing, even if you don't like the playoffs. That's what I'm gonna end off on. I want to be positive to end off this stream. I know I've probably been negative to a lot of people, or at least been critical, the eyes of a lot of people. But just enjoy it. Even if you don't enjoy parts of it, just don't pay attention to those parts if you can. Just didn't try. Always try and find something to enjoy with it. That's what I end off on. But thank you guys so much for watching. Now, I will say I more than likely will not be on after the Southern 500 just because I'll be out of town, but I will be on pretty much every race after that for the rest of the year. I will be on after the race doing these streams. I love doing them. For the good like a Bristol, or the bad like a Texas. I'll be on the last 9 for sure, but I won't be on next week. Got some fun stuff to do, just with family. But the rest of the year after that, can't wait. But thanks for watching, guys, and later.